Hey,
Elon, how
Lon.
you doing?
What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot going on. It's yeah, um, yeah, a lot going on. So I think, yeah. Anything you want?
Elon, we want to get sense of your thought process for growth rates and how do you uh, overall contextualize it or conceptualize it from Tesla standpoint for unit growth. You probably have your pulse on the entire global macroeconomic aspects as well as demand for your product, right? So
Yeah,
one aspect was that what we were discussing, and Elon, the second aspect was on Twitter side. It seems like you have kind of gotten to a good grip of the situation. What's your next step? So those are things which we were bouncing around our ideas on. So it would be great if you could give a couple of thoughts of your own.
sure. Well, on the Twitter front, I need to sort of deep dive on Twitter just to make sure the company didn't go bankrupt next year. So that was really, just required, I don't know, about a month of intense work. As I was still doing Tesla work during that time as well, by the way. And I think it's really, Tesla has not skipped a beat on execution. The Tesla team is doing an incredible job across the board in execution. So it's really, can't say enough good things about the Tesla team and the progress that's being made in terms of fundamentals. With respect to, with respect to sort of global demand, I just do want to really emphasize, and I'm not trying to say that this is the only reason, but it is certainly the primary reason, is that when interest rates increase, the cost of a car increases along with it. So the radical interest rate changes that have occurred have increased the prices of all cars, actually new and used. You can see like what a bath Carvana and CarMax are taking. This will be true of anything bought with debt. So that's on the demand side. Is the interest rate changes by the Fed, and then everyone's basically forced to follow the Fed. So you've got Europe raising interest rates, even Japan raising interest rates. Now and in my view, I've said a bunch of this already on Twitter. In my view, we are already in deflation. So the Fed is just dealing with old data. So then if I'm correct that we're already in deflation, the real rate of return of T-bills is insanely high. It's arguably above the long-term rate of the S&P 500. It's arguably above 6% real rate of return.
With you, right? Like from a macroeconomic perspective, that's why growth in tech stocks compress when interest rates are going up. But taking that out of the equation, and I think most of us reasonable investors up here, understand that. And I found it funny when you made that comment to Ross the other day as well. But taking that out of the equation, do you really feel, we've talked about the 50% growth rate, and I find that to be really an arbitrary number, whether it's 40 or 45.
Yeah.
Do you really think Tesla is going to sustain that growth rate in the next couple of years still?
Well, so I'm just laying out what I see as just this is my best guess at the future. It's not like I have like some incredible crystal ball that is an exact predictor of anything. So with all appropriate caveats, but the reality is, if we are in a recession, I think we are in a recession, and I think 2023 is going to be quite a serious recession. And it's going to be, in my opinion, comparable to 2009. I don't know if it's going to be a little worse or a little better, but I think it's in my view likely to be comparable. And that means demand for any kind of optional discretionary item, especially if it's a big ticket item, will be lower. And then with the Fed increasing rates, which is really, this is quite unusual. This is like when you're heading to a recession, you should be reducing the Fed rate, not increasing it. So that amplifies the difficulty. So now you have sort of structural demand, which is obviously going to be lower in a recession, and you amplified the effective cost of a car because they're almost all bought with debt. So now you get a double whammy, is what I'm saying. So then the obvious choice in that scenario is, do you want to grow unit volume, in which case you'll have to adjust prices downward, or do you want to grow at a lower rate or go steady? It's sort of a choice there. My inclination would be to still grow. My bias would be to say, like, okay, let's grow as fast as we can without putting the company at risk, which would mean, in that scenario, profits would be low to negative during a recession, provided the cash position is okay. I think that's still the right move long term, because there's also something that Tesla possesses that other car companies do not, which is extremely fundamental. That is that the cars are upgradable to autonomy, and arguably an autonomous car is worth many times what a non-autonomous car is. So even if your margins are extremely low in selling the car, if the subsequent upgrade to it being autonomous is worth a lot. So, and that's something that no other car company can do. Only Tesla can do that. So I think that if you say I stand by my prediction that long term, that Tesla will be the most valuable company in the world. I'm actually fairly confident that will be what happens. What I cannot predict, because there are many things outside of my control, is what will be the valuation along the way there. So that is subject to the stock, subject to a lot of emotional elements on the stock market, subject to macroeconomic conditions. But if say like long term, I would say Tesla's probably, in my best guess, most valuable company in the world in less than 5 years.
Hey, Elon, in terms of existing manufacturers...
Actually, so wait, three aces.
Sorry.
I apologize. I don't know how much time we're going to have, and I want to make sure Omar has a chance to get a question in here. I know a lot of people in here want to hear. Any thoughts or anything like that? Omar, I apologize for cutting you off, but do you have anything?
Well, yeah, I think I definitely agree with Elon. I've been using the FSD beta. It's been driving me all around LA with no takeovers. But, just to give voice to a lot of people, Elon, you've blamed sort of the macro environment. I think a lot of people don't understand the economy. But what would you say to people who say that, Elon bought Twitter and he had to sell his shares and he hasn't been doing anything at Tesla. He hasn't been doing his job. And he's turning people off with his political tweets. They're all canceling their Tesla orders. And this is all his fault, and he won't acknowledge it. He's just blaming it on macro.
Well, the thing is that, if you look at sort of automotive demand almost anywhere in the world, it's problematic almost anywhere in the world, and not everywhere cares about my political comments. So that I think this is of really of minor impact. Really, this is not. I really just don't think this is a significant factor.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So I mean, I don't think it's a significant factor. But the thing I just, the thing that I think most people are just not realizing is just how I sound like a broken record on this, but how big of an impact a Fed rate level is of this, on the order of 5%, is if we are in a deflationary environment, which I think we are in.
In autos, we are in a deflationary environment. And agree
objectively,
with you.
we are.
And you know, in 2021, we sold,
your mic cut out there, I think.
Yeah, you cut out.
Oh,
as well.
Elon, one comment I wanted to ask you on Twitter, Elon, specifically. The other day you tweeted about, if you were to step down as CEO, you'd stay on as head of software and servers. And from my perspective, I've been a Tesla investor since 2015, Elon, and my view of you at Tesla is that a lot of your excellence comes from your vision and your ability to delegate talent. So I guess my question to you would be, and I'm not saying I'm in the school of thought of some people that believe that you're not working on Tesla and SpaceX. I believe that you are, and I think that people just have a misrepresentation by reading your feed that you're not. But that being said, why is it that you feel, I guess, at this juncture, that you can't delegate, a handful of talent that you trust, who share your vision, to run the Twitter side while you focus on some of the bigger things elsewhere? I'm just curious to hear your opinion on that.
As I said at the beginning of the call, I had to have a sort of a short-term, month or so of just getting the insane Twitter costs under control. Twitter would just go flat bankrupt. So now that is basically almost entirely done. And then I've got to make sure that the engine of engineering at Twitter is working. Otherwise, Twitter cannot develop new features. But in the grand scheme of things, the amount of actual cognitive load that Twitter represents is low. I mean, it is a much simpler problem than Tesla or SpaceX, obviously, by a country mile. So I would say it was like high cognitive load for about a month. At this point, it is a moderate cognitive load. A month from now, it'll be I think low. So and if I look back and say okay, what are actions that could have been taken? What was there something that I failed to do at Tesla that could have been done and would have improved our execution? I literally cannot think of a single thing.
Elon, can we talk about?
Yeah, this is really great to hear you say. I think a lot of investors have sort of wanted to hear you say that and just reaffirm that you're committed to Tesla. I think those of us who know you know that your commitment to Tesla hasn't changed, but the perception people see on the internet can be very skewed sometimes.
Elon, can you talk about the issues in China and outlook on SAR? I know, Tesla's been able to sell and increase penetration and market share in EVs for many years, but now that it's at a larger scale, global auto SAR was at 66.7 million units in 2021. U.S. SAR is at 14.1 million. Outlooks for next year in the U.S. and overseas are on the decline, and prices are also declining. Like you said, I agree. We're in an auto deflationary environment when it comes to prices. Yeah.
Yes, objectively so. Yeah.
Can Tesla potentially, when it comes to unit sales, can Tesla continue to increase unit sales in this type of environment? Or will it have to provide more incentives? Or, how are you planning to, this macroeconomic environment is pretty challenging. How do you plan to address some of these, these issues that are outside of your control?
I'm just hoping, factually, if you since the vast majority of cars are bought on credit, the interest rates are a high real interest rate. Is literally just like increasing the price of the car. So in order to keep demand constant, you would have to therefore decrease the price of the car. It's the only that's if you want to keep demand constant, and if you want to increase demand, you have to decrease the price of the car further. This is like Econ 101 stuff. So that's the situation we have. It's kind of blown my mind that the Fed has raised rates so high. They're just dealing with old information, and it's like. Basically, like the economy right now is like a car, driving around on a cliffside road, and the Fed is driving it by looking out the rear view mirror. In fact, it's not even looking at the rearview mirror. It's looking at a video taken out of the rearview mirror that's like 3 months old. So obviously, this is not a good way to drive a car in a windy cliff road. So they're just very old school and traditional, and I think we're in for a hard landing. That's based on it's like I said, you have to think like like for argument's sake, if you have a risk-free rate like that is higher than the return on the S&P, which obviously has fluctuations, why would anyone have stock?
I mean, we're buying bonds. We're buying preferreds. We're, at 11, 12% yields. You can buy the T-Flow. Everyone on here, there's ETFs. They're floating rate instruments. You can easily earn, high single digits, double-digit return in very low-risk securities today. So I 100% agree with you. Why would you buy residual interest equity securities in risky companies? I 100% agree with your thought process. In an environment like this, now we don't expect rates to stay here forever, but it's a good question everyone should ask themselves.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And so like probably what's going to happen, it sounds like based on the Fed signaling, is they'll increase rates by another 50 basis points next month. And then my guess is they'll, again, it's not like I have a hotline to Jerome Powell. If somebody knows Jerome Powell, please tell him to stop raising interest rates. This was insane.
I feel like you could get him on the phone if you really wanted to.
I think so.
At this point.
Is he allowed to talk to me?
Sure.
Well, he doesn't have a Twitter account. I'm pretty sure he's allowed to talk to you.
Talk to business leaders, totally.
Let's get this set up. Let's do it on Twitter Spaces. That would be a conversation.
That'd be sick.
Elon versus the Fed on Twitter.
Twitter's valuation would pop on that too, right? You'd get a whole new batch of listeners.
Well, it's the whole market, But like I said, the thing to appreciate about interest rate increases is the double whammy effect of, if you're looking at a stock price, is higher interest rates will reduce the profitability of any company selling something that is dependent on the price of debt, because cars are bought with leases and loans. So people look at their monthly payment, and so you have basically a demand/profitability issue with higher interest rates, and then which then reduces profitability, obviously, and then in general the valuation of all equities drops with the increase in the real interest rate. That's the double whammy effect that I'm talking about. Now this will not last forever. They'll I don't know. Hopefully they'll see okay, they've gone too far, and then start lowering the rate, and then it's a question of, well, at what rate do they lower the rate? How long does it take them to get the rate back to something sensible?
Elon, on that point you made earlier about the raising, the higher rates, obviously making cars effectively more expensive. I agree with that. Obviously, it's a pretty basic notion, but I'm just curious, and we've talked about this before, and I know Gary has mentioned this before. What's your view on Tesla's path to the $30,000 vehicle or the next vehicle? I know you said that you guys had kind of tabled that last time you spoke about it. Have you guys brought that back up? Is it something you're considering again now, especially in this environment? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not the forum to make product announcements, but we're obviously want to make more affordable cars. So, and the Tesla product pipeline is awesome. I think Tesla's got the most exciting product roadmap of any company on earth by far. So that's, and the proof will be in the pudding. So,
hey, Elon, can I ask? I'm just connecting some of the previous points together. I'm a 10-year owner of Tesla and 10-year investor as well. Just connecting some of the previous points together. When I looked at the 08-09 inflation recession, in 07 in U.S. auto sales were at 16.5 million cars. 08 it went down to 13.1, and then 09 it went down to 10.4. So if you go from 07 to 09, there was a 36% drawdown in U.S. I'm just looking at U.S. auto sales. And then you look at what Tesla is projected to do this year in the U.S. in terms of EV as a percent of auto. It's going to grow 50% this year, go from 4.7% penetration of total auto to 7%, which is like a 50% jump in the U.S. And it's going to do about a 100% jump in China year over year. So these are unbelievable growth numbers of EV as a percent of auto. And the thing I don't think we've layered in is that Tesla has increased prices, even with this inventory reduction the last couple of days. Like the Model Y, I think, is still $19,000 higher than it was in the early part of Q4 2021. So long story short, if you overlay Tesla's EV adoption growth and you overlay like what happened in the last recession, which was pretty gnarly, it feels like in the fact that prices have gone up so much and commodities have come down so much over the last, I won't say so much, but commodities are starting to come down. How do you feel Tesla's positioned with all those factors in mind?
I think Tesla's positioned better than any other car company by far. And like I said, the fact that the vehicle is capable of autonomy with a software update is gigantic. It's a gigantic thing. No one else has that. So, and we also are starting from a position where our gross margins are higher than I think anyone else, which gives us more room to lower them and maintain or increase demand. So now, does that mean that like profits are a pretty picture in like a 2009 style recession? Of course not. That's just not physically possible. And there's no human on earth or me or anyone else who could change that.
Hey, Elon, I'm an emerging markets guy in Africa.
Yeah, I want to jump in here quickly. I appreciate it. Elon, I want to throw you out there a quick question, and then I'll throw it over to Gav, and then I want to hear Gary if he has any thoughts. But Elon, we're on Twitter Spaces right now. Is Twitter Spaces something that's kind of core to you and Twitter and the long term of it? Is it important to you?
Twitter Spaces seems to be, Twitter Spaces, I think is a great forum for the public in general, and I think it's quite useful to get the message out. Obviously, it's basically being on Twitter Space and then being able to sort of see the Twitter comments, the written comments at the same time, I think is Twitter at its best.
Yeah, I would definitely echo.
All right, can I stir up some drama here? Because we've got Ross Gerber in the room, and Ross has been saying Elon's doing a shitty job. He's not there, and he wants to run for the board of directors. Ross, would you like to confront Elon right now while we're in this space?
Yeah,
for the audience's entertainment?
That's not what I've been saying at all. I'm probably one of the biggest fans of Elon of anybody here, and I'm super grateful for the effort and success that he's put into making Tesla successful and SpaceX. And all I want to know is what's going on. And that's all I've asked from the Tesla board, too, is like, I just want to back at Tesla. I just miss you, Elon. Like, I love Twitter, and I love what you're doing with Twitter. And I support it 100%. And I've invested in it. And I would invest more. But I just I really think there's a huge community of people who just want to know, like, what's the next move? Like, how long is this going to be? Like, how much more stock are you going to sell? These are basic questions that I think are fair to ask.
Yeah, I'm not selling any stock for, I don't know, I'd call it a minimum 18 to 24 months. So you can count on me like no stock sales till probably, I don't know, 2025 or something. I basically, was like, I needed to sort of sell some stock just to make sure like there's like powder dry that, to account for a worst case scenario.
Totally.
Yeah.
I
and
get
so
all
that's
that.
really it. Yeah.
But I want to buy the stock.
But I'm not selling any.
Yeah. It's like I just don't want to get whacked the next day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. So I certainly have my commitment that I won't sell stock until, I don't know, probably 2 years from now. Definitely not next year under any circumstances, and I probably not the year thereafter. So I just really want to make sure that I'm somewhat paranoid, having gone through 2 really intense recessions.
I totally understand that.
That's great news. Thanks for making that statement. So
that
means a lot.
Can you just answer? Can you answer my other question though? Like, as far as what you're thinking as a timeline, as far as like when you're going to be back in Austin?
Yeah, I mean, I was back in Austin just last week, but Tesla's still primarily in the Bay Area, and I'm in the Bay Area.
Right.
I hadn't like literally, there's not a single important Tesla meeting that I've missed this entire time. So it's not like I'm totally missing in action. That's just not the case.
I agree, but maybe it's the optics a little bit. That's kind of where I'm coming from. It's like it's like an optics thing, and like a lot of things you're doing on Twitter, I'm like super like it needed to be done. Like, you know how I feel about the people who were running Twitter before, and I think you're doing a great job with the product, not to mention too, although it's not an easy task by any means. But I just think the perception is like, oh, he's doing this now and he's not doing that. And maybe the media is doing that, but it's just something you should be aware of. And that perception is a reality to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is obviously like mega catnip. If you cross catnip with crack, that's what Twitter is. A catnip crack. So like any tiny little thing of Twitter is like front page news. Right. It's like we have like some mid-level person left Twitter, front page news. Right. Like, that was ridiculous. So it's just going to get like outsized attention. But it's not like there's literally. If I think like, is there anything that I could have done in the past like few months that would have helped with Tesla's execution? I literally can't think of anything.
Right.
So, and there was not a single important meeting that I missed. It's we're making great progress on future product development, and it's really just like I think there's going to be some macro drama that's higher than people currently think, or higher than most people think, and it's hard to predict exactly. Economic prognostication is fraught with difficulty, but if we do have another 2009 situation, that's the stock prices of everything is going to be lower. And then I think it's arguable that stock prices of anything that's bought with debt will like not a staple, like it's sort of it's like buying sort of food at the grocery store, people will still buy that, but things that are bought with debt, like basically housing and cars are going to be the 2 biggest,
right?
Are really going to just get disproportionately impacted. But then it's sort of but if you say, like, that's why I was trying to emphasize, like, but from a long-term standpoint, like, there's a natural economic cycle that happens, and frankly, we're overdue for a recession. It's like shocking that we haven't had like a serious recession since recession in any meaningful sense of the word since 2009. That's like 13 years. Like, wow. So this is like it just economic cycles are just the way the economy works. Like, you have up and down cycles, and it's just the way things go. So we're somewhat overdue for that. I mean, I was talking to like Brett Johnson, who's the CFO of SpaceX, and he was telling me about when he was at Broadcom in 2000. And Broadcom was Broadcom's a good company making good products. It's not like Pets.com. So and I was like, yeah, it's pretty wild how when there's panic in the stock market, like how much even high quality company stocks can drop. And he was like, yeah, when he was at Broadcom, the stock dropped 97%. I was like, wow, that's a lot. That subsequently recovered to, I think, above, its previous all-time high. But, when there's extreme panic in the markets, like things can go to like ridiculous levels. I'm not saying that they will, but this is a thing that has happened in the past. That's why I've been very much encouraging people to avoid buying stock on margin, and just avoid margin debt, because you just don't know if there's going to be some panicky situation in the stock market.
Well, we got the panicky situation in the stock market before we got the recession, it seems. But it seems like the market is clearly pricing in what you're talking about, and I don't disagree with your viewpoint on Jerome Powell, and I would love to get him on a Twitter Spaces, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I also think that Tesla has a certain level of recession proofness, because buying a Tesla does cut your cost of living from an ICE vehicle. And I also think, and maybe you can confirm this, that your margins are probably increasing now that the supply chain issues and a lot of the commodity prices are decreasing, which can allow Tesla to lower prices to continue to sell more cars without hurting margins.
So I think Tesla will weather what I think is an upcoming economic storm maybe better than any company.
For sure.
But apart from like I said, if a company's like making like bread or something, they'll probably be they're like relatively recession proof. But compared to any company making large complex manufactured objects that are bought with debt, Tesla I think will do relatively better than anyone. But that doesn't. It's sort of like if you're a ship in the storm, even if you have a really great ship, you're still going to get bashed by the storm. So
yeah.
And there is with respect to cost structure somewhat of a lag effect, where the supply chain takes there's latency in the supply chain. So the supply chain will take a bit longer to reduce costs than we'd like, because there's call it 6 months of latency in the supply.
Right. So
Elon, on the supply chain side, Elon, just a question. I'm a lithium investor myself, and I know you've made many comments on lithium refining and processing in the last few months. What's been your, I guess, anecdotal view from Tesla's perspective into the end of this year on battery metals prices, and do you have a view on battery metals prices for next year as well, and any kind of commentary on how that's affected you, or any kind of strategy that Tesla's implementing to stay ahead of the battery metal pricing curve, if you will?
Yeah. So, again, I keep emphasizing like all these things need to be taken with a grain of salt, because I don't have like some.
Of course, yeah, I understand we're asking you to speculate.
Yeah, it's like if I had a perfect crystal ball, that'd be great, but I don't. The price of battery grade lithium is obviously insane. And it's constrained primarily at the lithium refining level, much more so than at the mining level. And that's why Tesla's building a lithium refinery in Corpus Christi. So is really to get out away from that choke point or diminish the lithium refining choke point. Like lithium is extremely common. It's everywhere, basically. It's not like oil. Like oil is much more localized and rarer than lithium. Lithium is basically everywhere.
Elon, on that facility you guys are looking to erect in Corpus, I've done a lot of work on lithium refining and processing, and I mean, typically those facilities, even with optimal CapEx, are taking a minimum of 7 years to get to maximum. So are you guys looking at a shorter timeline? Have you guys kind of broken that mold?
Yeah, I mean, 7 years is insane. We're at least maybe we're diluted, but we're aiming to be have meaningful volume out of that refinery in like 2 years.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's wildly impressive. And then you guys, I'm sure you guys will make way on that. And is that the only project you guys have considered so far, or is there? And I know a lot of this is speculation, but just curious.
Well, we're also doing the cathode refining, but that's like pretty obvious because it's like there's a giant building on the other side of the Giga Texas factory. That giant building is the cathode refinery that we've been building. So
Awesome.
And that's obviously for nickel-based cathodes. So we're like, I think, taking the steps that are necessary to enable, very high volume output of vehicles, electric vehicles, and stationary battery packs, and to reduce our dependence on the supply chain. So, I think we're making the smart strategic moves here. But as far as I think depending on what happens with total automotive demand, or especially electric vehicle demand next year, especially in China, where they make the most number of EVs, I think we probably see some reduction in the cost of battery materials.
Elon, you mentioned earlier on the asset price conundrum, when it comes to cars and autos and homes. The same applies to companies, right? If you think about Charter, for example, it has an earnings yield of 10%, but it has a debt yield of 7%. It used to be 4%. So corporate buybacks are less attractive in this environment. Would you agree that it makes more sense to reinvest in Tesla than it does to buy back stock?
Well, I mean, we're actually, I'd say, we're applying capital at pretty close to the fastest rate that we can spend capital and not be wasteful. So we're not saying, let's not spend money on important long-term projects. Like I just mentioned, the lithium refinery and the cathode refinery, which are important for long-term, high growth. So we are making these investments, and we, I can't sort of say too much about this, but we are close to picking location for another gigafactory. But we want to be sort of careful and deliberate about that. So there's a lot of good things that are happening. I think the smart move is we're coming into this recession, I think, in a very strong position. We don't have any debt. We've got on the order of $20 billion of cash and cash equivalents, and that's a pretty great position to be going into stormy waters with. But I think we want to make sure that let's just see how stormy are these waters, and are we talking about a mild recession, moderate recession, severe recession? We don't know yet. So I think it's not we just want to keep our powder dry and see what kind of economic environment are we going to see in 2023, the board is very open to doing a buyback, but I think it's we just want to. It wouldn't be smart to do a buyback and then discover that the recession is I don't know, for argument's sake, worse than 2009. And I'm that was foolish to have used up cash reserves for a buyback in the face of a severe recession. So we just need to kind of see what is the nature of the recession, and then if it's looking hey, we're doing okay from a cash standpoint, and the stock price is absurdly low, then at least my vote on the board would be to sort of do a buyback. But that's that's subject to the rest of the board's opinion as well. But my vote would be to do a buyback if once we are able to properly calibrate the scale of the recession, and just make sure that Tesla is healthy and we're not, spending cash reserves and putting the company at risk. That would be my concern.
On
For
the
people like
Twitter
me who love
X Tesla, yeah.
Sorry,
You want to go first? I'm popping after you.
Yeah, I mean, for people like me who love Tesla and love the products, it's just, I'm really glad that Tesla got profitable when it did. Because if it had to go through this storm when it was sort of where it was in 2018 or 2019, I mean, it might not have made it through it.
Yeah.
So it's,
100%.
really to tremendous credit of the management that we've gotten to this place where we're profitable and we don't have to worry about Tesla going under with this storm. You have the startups like Rivian and Lucid who are just burning cash like crazy.
Yeah.
Terrible situation for them. The legacy automakers, they're not in a great situation.
Correct.
Tesla's launching FSD beta. They're doing pretty well overall. They're in a better position than pretty much any of their peers. And that's, I think, a huge credit to you and the rest of the Tesla team.
Let me tell you, the Tesla team is kicking ass. And, honestly, to use an anachronistic analogy, Tesla is firing on all cylinders. So it's the actual, execution of the company is I think, outstanding. The team's doing a kick-ass job. So it's just, I guess Warren, what's that? Warren Buffett's got a lot of great sayings, but the, because this is a sort of thing where I suspect Warren Buffett's going to be buying a lot of stock next year, because if a company has very strong fundamentals, but then the market is doing some short-term panic situation, obviously that's the right time to buy stock. I stand by my prediction that Tesla will be the most valuable company in the world. I'm actually pretty confident that will be the case, but I just can't predict with accuracy the stock price between now and then.
On the Twitter X Tesla crossover that's happening there, I think when you were
Sorry, one at a time, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Stock Talk, mind if I go?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Go.
Yeah. On the Twitter X Tesla crossover, and we're all power users of Twitter. Stock Market News, Stock Talk and I have been using it for years. We've been hosting 40 hours of Spaces a week. There was a lot of hope that when the acquisition happened, that this could be a real synergy for Tesla, right? Who notoriously doesn't spend money on marketing and now has access to this incredible community. But of course, there's been work that has to go into Twitter. There's been a lot of restructuring there. Are there active synergies that you see or ways that you see these crossing over in the coming months or years to really supplement each other?
Well, I mean, Twitter, I and Tesla have long used Twitter, frankly, for free to advertise Tesla. So, my account and the Tesla account have been incredibly effective in building awareness of Tesla and actually driving demand. I think there probably are some synergies there, where Twitter can be helpful, perhaps even more helpful to Tesla. It certainly has, yeah. So,
hey, Elon, is there a way to connect our Tesla profiles to our Twitter profiles and get it in the car?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could.
Yeah, I think Twitter should be like the social graph of Tesla. I want to go in my nav system and say, okay, I want to meet up with Ross. So navigate us to this restaurant. We can see each other's location, that kind of thing.
And I can see all the other Tesla owners driving around me that want their visibility shared, and we could communicate through Twitter as the app.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I mean, it would kind of make sense to have a Twitter app on Tesla.
Yeah, we could listen to Spaces while we're supercharging. I was just supercharging actually a half an hour ago, and you just sit there. It's perfect.
I mean, Elon, Tesla is the biggest source of your wealth. When it comes to Twitter, I mean, these ideas are all great. These ideas are great. But does it make sense to have someone like, David Sachs come in and help you manage Twitter? And are there 3 candidates that you think would be really interesting to support you so that through this recession, the focus can be more on Tesla?
The focus will, let me be clear, the focus will absolutely be, Tesla just fundamentally is a far more complex beast than Twitter. So the things that are necessary to operate Twitter are just it's far fewer. It's a subset of Tesla complexity. Obviously, like Twitter is like it's got there's it's servers and software and phone apps and stuff, and it's it's at scale and stuff, but it is obviously it's the complexity is more than an order of magnitude lower than Tesla. So my attention will be primarily on Tesla, and I think I can still improve the Twitter product because I use it a lot. So in terms of guiding the product to become better and better, that's like kind of a natural thing since I have been using Twitter actively for since 2009. It's it's basically not that hard to know what things need to improve and then give that direction to the team and have it get it done. So yeah, it's I'm not trivializing Twitter, but it's just objectively it's like about 10% of the complexity of Tesla. So
music to our ears. A lot of investors are so happy to hear you say that, and I think it helps a lot you coming on this space and talking to people.
Elon, I just want to ask you briefly about Tesla
Super appreciated
and the launch of Tesla electricity in Texas. I'm a Texas resident as well, so I think that's a pretty exciting additional vertical maybe for Tesla from the utility perspective. If you just wanted to comment briefly on Tesla electricity and that starting up and your guys' outlook for Tesla electricity going forward, I think that'd be great to comment
on. Sure. Well, the overarching purpose of Tesla is to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. And and there's just really three pillars to sustainable energy, which is sustainable energy generation, primarily through wind and solar, and then storage of that energy, stationary battery packs, because of the intermittency of wind and solar, and then electric transport. And those are the three core pillars for a sustainable energy future. And we're working on all three. So, and I'd say the demand for large stationary battery packs, especially at the utility level, but also at the consumer level with Powerwall, is quasi infinite. Meaning it's assuming the economics are compelling to utilities for and so as long as say a Tesla battery pack is cheaper, all things considered, than say a natural gas peaker plant, the demand is gigantic.
And nobody's valuing that, are they? They're putting a value of 0 on it.
I don't know, but I wouldn't put a value of 0 on it. It is I've said before, we really want to be doing 1,000 plus gigawatt hours a year of battery packs, combined stationary and vehicle, and if not 2,000. So it's big numbers. At some point, I do eventually need to do this Master Plan Part 3. The Master Plan Part 3 is just about scale, and just people just one shouldn't even think of things in terms of dollars. You need to think of things in terms of tonnage, what tonnage of battery pack is needed. The fundamental rate limiter for humanity becoming self-sustaining from an energy standpoint is how many gigawatt hours per year of battery pack can you make? That fundamentally sets the rate at which humanity can transition to sustainable energy. Is how many batteries can you make per year? at the ton. What's the tonnage? Or in storage terms, how many thousands of gigawatt hours per year can humanity make? That's the faster that ramps, the faster one can get to a sustainable future. And our rough back of the envelope for transitioning civilization to a fully sustainable energy economy is around 300 terawatt hours of installed capacity ish. I mean, other people may come up with different numbers, but it's not an order of magnitude higher than that, and it's not an order of magnitude lower than that. So
perfect. We'll go to Monative next. Monative, I'm sure, is a great question. Monative, you've had your hand up for a while, and then we'll go to Earl as well, who's had his hand up. Monative, what's up?
Thanks, Talk. Hey, Elon, want to take you back a little bit to the comment you made about Fed being behind the curve and over tightening. So I've been living in the Valley here for close to 25 plus years now. So been through the thick and thin in the Valley. So certainly it looks like we are heading to a tech jobs recession, if nothing else, and probably a white collar jobs recession, and certainly a significant pullback in tech. Do you think that data is going to cause further contagion from top down at the highest income levels? And is the Fed going to see that and take that into account? Because clearly the overall jobs market is fine at the lower level, but certainly there's a lot of weakness at the higher level.
Sorry, you blanked out there for a second. Can you repeat the question?
Sorry about that. So I was just saying, to your earlier point about the Fed being behind the curve, we're not seeing, real jobs problem at the highest level within tech. The high-paying jobs are being lost at a furious pace. But overall job market seems to be fine because of the lower end jobs. Do you think the Fed is going to take that level of nuance into account before they go too far?
Look, I don't know what my insight into the Fed's decision making is zero. So I don't know, I don't know any of the people on the Fed board. I'm not sure I've ever even spoken to them, so I don't know what the Fed's going to do. I've been surprised by the rate increases, and like I said, I think they're looking at like data in a kind of a legacy way with that where the data's got a lot of latency, and so then they're just making decisions with data that's really stale and not reflective of the current situation. So that just means their reaction will be delayed. So they're raising rates more than they should, and then they'll probably take longer to lower the rates than they should. That's based on the past track record.
That makes perfect sense with structural unemployment. I mean, there are a million jobs without open immigration that we can't just we can't fill out of thin air. So I tend to agree with you that this tightening could last longer. And Musk, you're not the only one. I mean, they're the top hedge fund managers in the world. I mean, Tepper was on TV this morning. I've never seen the guy this depressed in the last 20 years. Wow. So, he was the one in 2010 that was saying, hey, QE1, he went all in and, built a $20 billion organization. But, even the best fund managers, prognosticators, no one has any idea on how this is going to play out. So all we can do is, have our scenarios and play out various cases and manage risk for the best.
Yeah.
Earl, you're up.
Hey, thank you. Hello, Elon. Long-time shareholder, first-time caller. I have a quick question, but before I get to that, I would like to point out that when you put Floki in the frunk, Tesla was over $300 a share. I don't know if it was related, but you might want to consider that to pump the stock again. On to my question. I've always been a rabid fan. There's a lot of people who are similar to me, probably a little more liberal, very passionate about our Teslas, proud of our Teslas. And, over the takeover of Twitter and some of these comments, I think some of us have been feeling a little bit disenfranchised. Still big fans, still shareholders. But, some of the magic is missing a little bit there. For example, I have a daughter, or I have a daughter and then also a trans child. And they both were always very excited about our Tesla. We went and bought a Model X, and now they have mixed feelings about it. It's just like, and it's not always directly related to what you say, but kind of some of the opinions or attention you draw to things like pronouns or something like that. And it's sad for me to watch that happen. And so I've tried to speak out about that. It doesn't really go anywhere, but I do worry also as a shareholder about, are we alienating certain people, not just extreme left people, but just kind of in the middle folks like myself that, it's just added in some politics and controversy that takes away a little bit of the shine off of our Tesla. Now, I did sell my Model 3, but it was mostly because I live in Alaska. We're missing some chargers. I'm going to throw in a plug for that. But, still a big fan. Like I said, still have our shares, still love driving our Teslas around. But I was just wondering if you've thought about that at all as you're, taking on this big Twitter job.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm not going to sort of suppress my views. So it's like, it's just to boost the stock price. Something like that's not going to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he's saying, though, Elon. I think when you own a media property, there's this perception of independence that's expected from the owner. And the Wall Street Journal is owned by Rupert Murdoch, but he doesn't write the opinion pieces, even though we know it's his opinion. And so I think, it sort of throws people off that the owner has an opinion. Now, I don't think your opinions are extreme, but a lot of people in the media take what you say, and by the time the customers read it, it's not what you said at all. And, I just think there's this big perception gap being driven on beliefs that aren't even yours, really, because you're saying something, And I just think that part of it, it's almost like a trap that it's like a lose-lose trap. And I hate seeing people get caught in that.
I mean, Elon, you don't hate trans people, do you? Or what are your views on that?
No, of course not. I mean, I'm not in general a hater of anyone, frankly. So, but I think that there's, the thing that it does bother me that people will use pronouns to be super judgmental. And actually, to me, it feels like a lot of these things are just they're a shield that allow people to be assholes. They're like a moral shield it just gives them an excuse to be an asshole, and that's what bothers me. So
yeah, I get that, but I think what happens real easily in the media is it just appears that you're punching down to a really marginalized group. Like my kid is just trying to have their pronoun used in school and stuff, and it's then you have this really rich popular person crapping on pronouns, but it gets mixed up, and it's I think the people that you're talking about, it gets mixed up, and then people just see it as a more broader thing that you're being negative towards trans people. But
okay,
I do have to ask you really.
Let's move on to
just really quick.
Move on to the next conversation.
Yeah, we got Gary and Chuck with hands up too.
We're gonna go to Gav first, who's his hand up, and then we'll go to Gary.
I got just a simple question, Elon, because there's been a lot of this use of polls on Twitter. And as somebody, again, we're Twitter power users. We love that idea that we can have the opportunity to participate in major decisions that are going to affect us, right? My entire income comes from Twitter. With that being said, there's been a couple different ways around the polls. There's been thoughts, are the polls being used to root out bots? There's been polls that are, of course, you've abided by. There's been a tweet that polls would maybe just be available to Twitter Blue users. I'm kind of curious if there's any clarity you can give on, are these major decisions going to be made by polls? Can those polls be trusted? Do you have systems to get rid of potential botting? And then will those polls be available to everybody or just to Twitter Blue users?
I think that is the subject of debate. The challenge with polls, I mean, maybe it could be open to Twitter verified or all. The challenge with all is that it's like ridiculously cheap to to buy like a bot army. It's like less than a penny a bot. So you can like for not that much money, you can have 10,000 or 100,000 bots all participate in a poll and shift the direction of a poll. Now the interest in shifting, like it depends on how motivated is someone to use a bot army to shift a poll, and then often you'll see like basically what appear to be almost certainly warring bot armies, where two sides are both have bot armies, and they're trying to push a vote one way or the other. So I think in order to have a vote that it does not have a lot of bots and trolls, I think you would have to restrict it to verified users. Otherwise, obviously, it's just too cheap to scam the system.
Elon, is there an easy way to kick out bots like intraday? Like a reCAPTCHA is a basic. I'm not an engineer by trade, but something like that, like intraday, kick everyone out, have them log back in, use a reCAPTCHA or something like that, and just push these bots off the platform over time.
Yeah, I mean, bot is maybe not necessarily the right word, because there are bots like there's degrees. There's a purely automated situation where CAPTCHA would have some value, although really AI like readily available AI is getting to the point where it's it's certainly going to get to the point where it's better than humans at reading a CAPTCHA, not worse. So like the value of a CAPTCHA is just diminishing over time. Then there's the situation where they're not actually bots; they're people, but like somebody's got like a warehouse somewhere, where there's like 10,000 phones. You've got like 100 people, or for argument's sake, 100 people each operating 100 phones. So that's not a bot, and they can all perform the CAPTCHA. So there's a whole bunch of that going on. In fact, you can see pictures of that on the internet. You could Google it. So there's not like some easy way to get around this. That's what I'm saying. It's really difficult. That's why I use bots and trolls. It's like bots are cheap, but trolls are also pretty cheap, like a troll farm. So I think you really, to have a high quality poll, you have to have some verification, and that verification has to, I think, increase the cost, the effective cost of having a bot or troll, by an order of magnitude or more. Like, so if it costs like let's say a penny for a troll vote, now if that's instead they're paying like $8 or $10, now you've increased the effective cost by 10,000, or sorry, by 1,000, I should say, roughly. So that makes it much harder to scam. Anyway, I got to get back to work here, guys. Speaking of work.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for your time, Elon.
Yeah, thanks, Elon. Really appreciate it. Really do.
Thank you, Elon. Thank you.
I guess my parting words were like, there's stormy weather ahead, but then it's going to be sunshine thereafter.
Elon,
when's the 11 coming?
Come on more of these Tesla spaces with
Yeah,
us.
that'd be
Tesla
great.
Shareholders love hearing from you. They love hearing from you, and it's like really, I think, great for sentiment. So come on more of these spaces with us, and we'll make sure that we give you a good blend of hard questions and easy ones as well.
All right,
When's the 11 coming? What's your best guess?
Well, we had hopefully before the end of the year. I mean, we're on V11.2 with the limited beta. But so it's probably like, I don't know, 11.3. It's pretty soon. It's not like far away. It's measured in single digit, like, sort of in the roughly.
Nice. That's exciting. Well,
Yeah,
the existing version's amazing. It's been driving me around with no takeovers most of the time.
Yeah. The thing about the V11 is like, there are a bunch of neural nets that are architecturally much better than 1069, but they they've got much more room to improve. We're just, autopilot has been going through like a series of local maximums, and so when you exit a local maximum, you first go down before you go up. And so the neural net architecture in V11 is actually much better, but it just takes time to hone the details. But it's like, I mean, it's rare for me to intervene at this point when I drive around. It's like, so it's surprising to like. The vast majority of trips that I take on autopilot are zero intervention. So it bodes well for the future.
Chuck, do you have anything to say before he goes?
Hey, Elon, thanks for making yourself available. I was just going to say, first of all, thank you for working on hard problems such as the unprotected left turn. Do you think that many of the hard problems are going to need that much effort? Do you think it's going to generalize across the space? I know V11 is a good example of that. I'm just curious if you think that they're going to have to put that much effort towards a lot of these corner cases, or if that was just a good example of how to put engineers to work to create a solution both in the simulator and in real life.
I mean, this will just be my last answer, but with every new architecture of every new neural net architecture is more generalized than the last time. So it actually ends up solving not just, say, extended unprotected lefts, but it ends up solving a whole bunch of things. So it's not like it's actually with each major rev, there's more and more generalization of solving what is effectively the real world AI problem. And Tesla is, as far as I can tell, overwhelmingly the best at real world AI. And our rate of progress is increasing. So, all right, with that, it's good talking to you guys, and look forward to talking again in the future.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much.
Cheers,
Big
man.
difference
Thank you,
here.
sir.